Now, the next sutta is 2.4.4. Now the house father Anathapindika came to visit the Exalted One, and saluted him and sat down at one side. So seated, he said this to the Exalted One: Pray, Lord, how many in the world are worthy of offerings, and where should an offering be made? Then the Buddha answered, Two in the world, house father, are worthy of offerings, the learner and the adept. These two are worthy of offerings in the world, and here an offering should be made. And that's the end of the sutta. Now, this is one of the suttas that we need to comment on, otherwise people may have some wrong bias interpretation or extreme interpretations. The Buddha is saying that two types of persons are worthy of offerings, and these two types are Aryan persons. The first one is a learner. A learner is what is called a Sekha. Sekha, S-E-K-H-A. Sekha means one who is training. And one who is training is a person who has attained the first path, or the first fruit, or the second path, or the second fruit, the third path, or the third fruit, and the fourth path. These are the 7 types of persons. And the adept is the Asekha, A-S-E-K-H-A, Asekha. Asekha is one who is no more learning. That means an Arahant. Arahant is a fourth fruit person. And these areas, there are 8 areas. It's not that there are 4 areas, there are 8 areas. Later on, we can see some suttas which can prove that you have 8 persons actually, not 4. There are some teachings, some later books like I think the Abhidhamma and commentaries, which say that when a person attains the path, he immediately attains the fruit. But later I can show you some suttas where it is not quite so. You can have a person who is on the path, and he can be on the path for many years before he attains the fruit. So here the Buddha is saying that these Aryans are worthy of offering. And it is partly because of a sutta like this. There are some people, they due to the greed for merit, sometimes they only like to make offerings to monks that they think are Aryans, and they think that other monks are not worthy of offerings, and this is not the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha has said in some other sutta, I think in the Anguttara Nikaya, that if you make offerings to monks with a selfish motive to get such and such merit, then it reduces your merit. That's one thing we have to know. The other thing is, the Buddha has stated in the Anguttara Nikaya 4.60 that it is the lay person's duty to supply the Sangha with the 4 requisites. The 4 requisites that a monk needs are the 4 essentials of existence. The first one is food, the second one is robes, the third one is place to stay, and the fourth one is medicine or medical care. And the Buddha said it is a lay person's duty to supply monks with these 4 requisites. And if lay persons don't take care of the Sangha, then who is the Sangha to turn to? They might as well disrobe and earn their own salary if lay people don't support them. And another thing is, there's another sutta where the Buddha said, in the future, I don't have the number of the sutta offhand. The Buddha said, in the future, there will be monks who wear the yellow robe, and they might be corrupt. They might not keep the precepts, and and they might not practice the spiritual path, etc. Even then, the Buddha said, if you make offerings to them, still it is meritorious. Why? Because if we make offerings to the Sangha, then it helps to perpetuate the Sangha. And even if at a certain stage the Sangha do not practice well, later there's always a chance that you might get Arahants again. Just like in Sri Lanka, certain countries like Sri Lanka, there was a time when the monks were corrupt. And so some people were so disillusioned that some monks, they went to Burma, went to Thailand to reordain and come back and establish a new chapter, a new sect of Sangha, like for example the Siam Nikaya in Sri Lanka. It was started after a monk went over to Thailand, reordained with the Thai Sangha and came back. He wanted to change the Sangha. So it is important for lay people to continue to support the Sangha so that the Sangha can continue. If it is cut off, then it is forever cut off. And the Buddha said that it's always more meritorious to offer to the Sangha than a single monk. That's why we notice in the Vinaya, the Buddha's mother, that means the lady who looked after him as a mother, is actually his foster mother because his real mother died very soon after he was born. And the foster mother became a nun known as Mahapajapati. And after she became a nun, she decided to make a robe and offer it to the Buddha. So she came, and because of the love for the Buddha and the respect, she personally offered this robe to the Buddha. And the Buddha, out of compassion for her, refused to accept. The Buddha said, please offer it to the Sangha, because the Buddha wanted her to have more merit. But because of her sort of some attachment to the Buddha, the love, she didn't want to offer it to the Sangha. Even though the merit might be less, she wanted to give it to the Buddha. Second time she came and offered it to the Buddha. Second time the Buddha refused, asked her to give it to the Sangha. Third time she came and offered to the Buddha. Third time the Buddha refused, asked her to give it to the Sangha. Both also had mutual love for each other. One wanted to give it to her, to him personally. The other one, out of love for her also, wanted her to have more merit, asked her to offer it to the Sangha. The other thing is, it is stated in the sutta that of all the material offerings that a person can give, the highest material offering is to make a monastery, either to offer the land for a monastery or to help build a monastery for the Sangha. And the Buddha said, by offering a monastery to the Sangha, the merit is higher than feeding the Buddha and all the Arahant disciples. All the Arahant disciples together, feeding them is not so meritorious as offering a monastery for the Sangha to live. Why? Because by offering a place for the Sangha to live, then the Sangha is perpetuated. It continues years and years and years. The other thing about now, the other thing is lay people should not discriminate too much between monks. The Buddha said in one sutta that lay people should not be too attached to one particular monk. The details are given in that sutta. There's no need to mention it here. And why? Because it is very difficult for lay people to distinguish between monks. And in the suttas we find even an anagami, like the lay person Chitta, even though he's an anagami, when he invites monks to his house, he bows down to them. even though they are putujana or what, even he is an anagami. He bows to the monks because he is bowing not to the particular monk, he is bowing to the sangha. The monks represent the sangha. In the Anguttara Nikaya 4.4, the Buddha says that if you treat 4 persons badly, you have wrong conduct towards 4 persons, you create much demerit. One is to the Buddha, the second one is to his disciples, that means his monk disciples.